I will open the regular City Council Successor Agency and Housing Authority meeting of April 24th, 2023. It is 6:04. And I will ask that Captain Walker please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Captain. Madam City Clerk, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Gardner,
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe,
Here.
Councilmember Venable,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Duncan,
Here.
Mayor Beaver,
Here.
all present.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. City Manager, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. We are going to ask that we push off items number 11 and 13 to a future agenda.
All right, thank you. Does that need a vote, or we just take staff's recommendation?
I think as long as there's no one objects to that, I think that's fine.
Objections?
No.
I see none.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Good evening, Mayor. There's no items to report out of closed session today.
Thank you. All right, this time we'll go on to special presentation. I will call up Mr. Ed Purvis and Mr. Mark Shaw, if you're here. And this is from the Redlands Bicycle Classic. Gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councils. Thank you for allowing just a quick moment. I'm glad to see that the city turned out to support us tonight, so that's great to see. So the Redlands Bicycle Classic was about 2 weeks ago here in town, and things went very well. Would like to just take a moment to thank all of the city staff, particularly Megan, who worked with us closely, but all of Public Works and police and fire, and it was a great opportunity for us all to work together, make some changes after last year's event, really try to improve some stuff with traffic flow, and I know it's always a challenge and it does inconvenience some folks, but we certainly appreciate the city allowing us the opportunity to come up here and participate. It was a great day of racing, a little cold up in Oak Glen at the end, but it was really great. So I have with me Mr. Ed Purvis. He's really our logistics guy, and he lives here in town, and he really worked hard to make sure that we could do exactly what we promised to the city of Yucaipa. And so for your in-kind sponsorship and your willingness to work with us, we just have a brief little token of our appreciation here that we'd like to present to the council.
No, thank you so much. Certainly an event that is worthy of the support. It brings worldwide attention to our small corner of the world, and in a positive way. I got a few phone calls from parents upset about the Parkview Middle School, Ridgeview Elementary, but I know that there was leaps and bounds made from last year, and I think if we continue down the working together to try to mitigate that even further in the future, it's going to be an altogether supported event. Certainly has my support. We would love to come down and have a photo taken with you gentlemen and accept this token. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, moving on to public comment. If there's anybody who wishes to be heard, there's public speaker slips in the back row of the room. If you'll please hand it to Anna Sacita, our city clerk, she will hand them to me. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please maintain civility, be professional, extend respect to your fellow speakers. We will also be respectful, not interrupt, and we expect the same. Let's keep we are all neighbors, and we can be passionate about our opinions, but let's be respectful. So the first speaker is Mary LaPlante. If you could come up front and give us your name and your address or who you're speaking from.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mary LaPlante. Unfortunately, I don't live in your beautiful city. I live in the city of Beaumont. But I'm here because I am also the Managing Labor Relations Representative for City Employees Associates, and I represent the city of Yucaipa City Employees Association. And I have represented them since April of 2014. It seems like just yesterday, but I'm proud to say that it's been 9 years. Many of the employees in this group are standing behind me today and request that I speak to you on their behalf. Unfortunately, many of the people in your community who are not city employees have made statements that we believe to be inaccurate. And I'm here to clarify on behalf of the general employees of your fair city. Some of these statements, some of the people have stated that city employee morale is low under the current leadership and new city manager. That employees are being terminated and that employees are unhappy. These facts are simple. No single employee has been terminated since management has changed. The employees are very happy. They are being given opportunities to speak up and are actually seeing that their input is being considered in setting goals and objectives for this city, and has also been recently accepted by some of the city council actions. This has empowered the employees. It is giving them hope that the future growth and development within their roles and ultimately enhancing the employee morale. It's higher than I've ever seen. The city manager, Chris Mann, has met with several members individually and has given employees each the opportunity to express their concerns regarding adequate staffing, aging equipment, continuing professional development and training, and much more. Neither our association nor the members of our association want to be involved in the politics that are going on. We are here for the sole purpose of serving the citizens of Yucaipa. However, we do not want false impressions to continue problemating throughout our community when it comes to employee morale. Like I said, we are happy here. In summary, we appreciate the community's desire to protect and support the city employees. You should know that we are happy and that we serve the community under the people that have been chosen to lead the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. There's 3. Sorry, folks, we're working through some technical difficulties up here with our timer. The next speaker is Mr. Richard Frost. Mr. Frost, if you could just give us your address, please.
12731 3rd Street, Yucaipa. Okay, there's been a trend with real estate companies around the country buying up apartment complexes and giving the people, I get no-fault evictions. And then they fix it up a little bit, and then they double the rents. That's what they did with my building. And the company with this building, with the one I live in, is a Doug Wetton company, property management out of Costa Mesa, but they've been very reasonable up to now. But it's just kind of, I've talked to other people and they say that, that they see this trend and then they get around, it's pretty profitable. So they specialize in underperforming properties and ones that haven't been kept up very well. So it's hard to find an apartment that takes dogs too, so.
Thank you for your comments, sir. The next speaker, Dr. Terry Boone.
Terry Boone, 9794 Yucaipa Ridge Road. Three issues. Number one, Mr. Venable, last city council meeting, you had said that, and I am giving you exhibits, that the citizens did not contact the developer and have any conversations prior to fighting the development. I want to show you on exhibit that we were given notice on June 7th, 2022. We were not given a map. We went to the city and got a map. I called the developer. Handwritten letter, walked to 100 homes in my community and up Ivy, notifying them that we were going to have a community meeting with the developer who he could speak and the citizens could ask questions. So we did have a meeting prior to the development being presented to Planning Commission. Not only that, but the two owners of the property, Preston Todd, who is the owner of the winery, Bobby Duncan, and the current mayor at that time, David Avila, were at that meeting. There wasn't a quorum, so there isn't a Brown Act attack, but there was a community meeting, and we were in no uncertain terms told the planner that we were not interested in less than 1/2 or less than 1 acre parcels. So I wanted to clear that misunderstanding up. Issue number two, the letter from Matt Garner during his campaign where he says, our rural way of life is under attack. The North Bench needs a champion. That's why I'm running for city council. I will fight to protect the rural nature and oppose any and all efforts to bring high-density development to the North Bench. So interesting how that vote came upon us last week. The last thing that I want to do is read one paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men derived by their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on the principles and organizing its power in such form as to themselves seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Martha Glubka, followed by Mr. Clint Sandusky.
Good evening. 13494 Mesa Terrace Drive, Yucaipa. Tonight I'm requesting that the council adopt and adhere to the code of conduct that was proposed back on August 12, 2019 when it was presented and passed in a 3-2 vote. How is it that there are rules for the citizens that you serve but not for the members of council? The special meeting on Serrano Estates last Monday, April 17th, we were once again subjected to a councilman blurting out his insult against the News Mirror, calling it a rag. There was absolutely no provocation that would have prompted his comment. He was in recent meetings called out citizens by name. They were his friends with accusations, insults, berated the North Bench residents, consistently dismissed citizens that have spoke at the meetings, scolding them not to repeat themselves as he has already heard all of it before and put them down by saying all he hears is blah, blah, blah. He even had the audacity to insinuate that Mayor Beaver, in his absence, that the mayor was weak by allowing people to finish their sentence when their 3 minutes were up and that he would not tolerate it. We now have had our rights taken away by not applauding for any speakers that we may feel are befitting of our own opinions and warn that if we don't obey your rules, we'll be asked to leave. And if we don't, you will order the sheriff to escort us out of the building. Really, is this what it's come to? But we have to follow your rules, and I say we should be allowed to follow your lead instead. If you applaud, then it signals us that we also are allowed the same expression of support. Have you as a council not applauded at every meeting to those that you honor at the beginning of meetings? How does that work? This has gotten so far out of hand, and you know it's going up in flames before you. At what point are you as leaders, you profess to be, going to allow the pendulum to come back into balance? Is it too much to ask that there may be some fairness by both sides here? Imagine what we are thinking when we are subjected to the superiority complex at each meeting by one of your members, and there are no consequences to his continuous belittling of the citizens you took an oath to serve. This is not only objectionable to us, but it's a double whammy. That it is even allowed. There's absolutely no reason that this should be tolerated by any one of you. So I would propose either holding each other accountable by having the same sanctions you have put upon us, or allow us to blurt out to the sheriff to have the person removed from the building, as would be done to any one of us that insulted and fueled the fire. You all know what it takes to put the fire out with all due respect. Step up, take control, and earn some respect by balancing out the rules you've set in place. You have the power to change the course, but your silence says to us that you approve of this behavior or don't have the leadership to stand up and challenge the behavior of your constituent. Be forthright in your support of those that had confidence in your skills and smother the fire that burns amongst you. Thank you. And I'm going to give this to council because I am proposing that it's got to change for us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Clint Sandusky, followed by Ms. Sherry Todd.
Thank you, council members. My name is Clint Sandusky, and I live at 13491 Mesa Crest Drive, 22 years. I'm a retired police officer and a longtime police bike patrol instructor, and I'll mention that a little later. Wanted to let the council know that next month, and this is another bicycle-related story, May is National Bike Month. It has been since 1956. I would love to see the city council recognize that through proclamation that May is National Bicycle Month. With that said, I'd like to applaud the city for in Uptown promoting through the banners on the streetlights all of the wonderful outdoor resources and activities that Yucaipa has, whether it be bicycling, hiking, equestrian, or outside activities. But with that, I think I would like to encourage the city council, like I did last year, to revisit my proposal for successful bicycling program here in the city of Yucaipa, using the 3 E's of traffic safety or bicycle safety, which are education, engineering, firming right there, and also enforcement. And you may ask why. Well, unfortunately, within the last 12 months, and I've got a CHP report that I'm going to give the city council, we've unfortunately and very sadly had 2 cyclists killed, different circumstances, and 1 seriously injured. I mean, that's unheard of in our city. So I would like to see the city council adopt all those 3 E's of traffic safety. With that, I'm starting the wheel rolling. Rachel from the Newsmere was kind enough to publish an article that I wrote, Tips for Successful Bicycling. This is part 1. Part 2 will be in there next week. And lastly, and Captain Walker, and I've already spoke with him, I'd like to recognize 3 outstanding deputies from Yucaipa here, Deputies Bremer, Mora, and Tormey. They recently took our Riverside County Sheriff's Bike Patrol course, where I was the lead instructor, and I would like to say that they did us proud. They were professional, polite, eager to learn, and they even laughed at some of my jokes, so I thought that was kind of cool. So thank you very much, and I've got a picture here. They are on the top right, and I would thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, can we please make May, make a proclamation ready for May's meetings for National Bike Month, please?
I think we can arrange that. Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Also, we'd have, as you all know, we have a very healthy Trails and Open Spaces Committee in our city. We have the mountain bike course. We have plenty of bicycle paths in the area. And one of our members have suggested we do more by taking some of the flood control area that runs several miles of our city and is going altogether unused and making it safer for people to walk and ride bikes from 10th Street all the way up to 2nd Street. So Christine, thank you for that. And I've passed it on to city staff. We got to be better at providing safer routes around our city. And that is one way we can do it. So Ms. Todd, I apologize. I didn't take any of your time. You still have 30 minutes.
No problem. Good evening. Good evening, council. Again, my name is Sherry Todd. I live at 35182 Quartz Street, Yucaipa. And I'm reading on behalf of Denise Works, who could not be here this evening. We are recalling the following individuals: Justin Beaver, Bobby Duncan, and Matt Garner, because of the outrageous actions taken on January 9th in removing City Manager Ray Casey and City Attorney David Snow in an underhanded, pre-planned decision violating city code and the law under the Brown Act, and at the same time bringing in Chris Mann and Stephen Graham from the parking lot in the middle of the night to take their jobs, all without filling out an application or any vetting of a normal applicant. This occurred while Ray Casey, David Snow, and a dozen citizens waited in the foyer of City Hall. And then, for his 20 years of service to the citizens of Yucaipa, Ray Casey was escorted out of the building by law enforcement on that same evening. This is not only disgraceful, it is illegal. On top of that, this action cost the taxpayers the 2 years left on Casey's contract, as well as whatever they had to pay to buy his silence, all of which appears to be in excess of $1 million. Following this blatant disregard for their fiduciary responsibilities, they continued the spending spree in negotiating Chris Mann's contract. These actions alone are enough to recall these individuals, not to mention the cronyism and conflicts of interest. We must remove these men from our city council and try to mitigate the damages already done by their careless actions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker, Mr. Nelson Fink, followed by Mrs. Diane Smith.
I'm Nelson Fink. I live at 12367 4th Street, Mission Park. I object to the reading of the second reading where you are going to do away with the commission for rental on the park, and you are going to appoint someone to do that job. We don't know who you're going to appoint. I don't believe you have time enough after everything you've done to our council in the last month or two to where you can do a fair and balanced appointment to somebody, one person, to run the park. The big objection that I really have is that you want to eliminate any appeal process. So you're going to appoint, by passing this number 422, to somebody, we don't even know who. He may be standing in a parking lot somewhere. And then you're going to do away with the rental process? No, I don't think. I don't agree with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, or maybe our Assistant City Manager, can you comment on that? I don't believe all of that was accurate, so I'd like to clarify some of
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to clarify it. As presented to council back on March 13th, 2023, the city staff presented the concept for council to consider regarding a hearing officer. And we had brought this item to council since 2011 through multiple biennial review processes before the commission and council. And one of the reasons is it's very difficult to find a 5-member commission who can understand the complexity associated with the special rent adjustment applications. There's a court recorder involved, experts, lawyers, and it's a more intense process to review and to identify if the application is based on a fair return. And on an ongoing basis, we have had a very difficult time not only finding 5 people, but people that can understand the ordinance along with their obligation that can uphold itself if it got appealed to council in the court. Based on council direction, I did issue an RFP out to city attorney, or out to attorneys and judges, retired, whoever wants to apply. It's been posted on the city's bid board document. I think we've even put it out to the attorneys groups in California. We're looking for someone in the Southern California area. The deadlines for submittal of their applications are due on May 16th, which then I'll review along with our city attorney, and then we'll select a few firms to accommodate schedules and any cases that come along throughout the year, if any, and then we'll present the agreements for council consideration. The reason for the elimination of the appeal is because these are attorneys or retired judges. Appeal process can go to court. It doesn't come before your body because it would be probably difficult due to expertise that you could overturn that ruling. And Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of clears the process and it expedites the process because costs associated with these applications, if approved, get passed back along to the residents living in that said park. And so we have, as staff, have been introducing this since 2011 to help accommodate those costs associated with the ongoing hearings before the commission, appealed to council, then to court, and we've had experience where it gets kicked back to council to revise their decision. I have had several meetings with YMRA, with Shirley, with Tony Schlake, and even Lynn Tyler. And I know it's always been a fear that the residents, but this does not eliminate rent control. If anything, in my personal opinion of doing this since 2004, it enhances our program and ensures that the applications are being thoroughly reviewed to ensure that the residents aren't paying any more than what they have to.
So if we were to, if this rent review hearing officer is a retired Superior Court judge who's heard these cases before, what you're saying is it doesn't make sense for them to be able to appeal the process back to me, a police officer, a real estate agent, a construction worker, another police officer. I don't know what you do for a living, but the idea is I certainly don't know more than a retired Superior Court magistrate in the realm of, you know, this type of civil law. What good does it do to appeal it back to me so that I can ask him for his expert opinion? Is
Right.
that the kind of the
Yes,
idea?
and it doesn't even have to be a retired judge. It could be a city attorney in other communities, and a part of the RFP, we requested experience in the area of rent control in other communities. Other communities use hearing officers, and that helps expedite and thoroughly review the applications, and they know the processes and our local ordinance to ensure that everything has been vetted appropriately to determine what would be the fair return or maintenance of net operating income
Last
or
point,
loss of amenity.
if I could just, maybe a yes or no, ma'am, is it YMRA still support this?
YMRA does still support this for a variety of reasons, including cost savings, expeditious hearings, and I think it's to the benefit of everybody concerned.
Okay, so for the benefit of the record on people who are listening at home, YMRA does support it for at least 3 reasons. So, thank you, Ms. Smith. I apologize. Your time has come. I apologize.
That's okay. I'm Diane Smith, and I live in District 5. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I'm here tonight to talk about the recall because the signatures were turned in today. A recall is an extreme intervention to be used only in the most egregious situations. Mayor Beaver, Mayor Pro Tem Duncan, Councilman Garner, and Councilman Venable, this is all your fault. Councilman John Thorpe is the only one in the council of whom his wife and family can be proud. I don't know why the 4 of you aren't filled with guilt, shame, and remorse. On January 9th, you launched a secret, well-planned attack on our city. A man's brilliant career was terminated. Dirty politics were implemented. Suspicion and doubt were planted, and Camelot was being destroyed. You ignored our municipal code and under the cover of night opened a door to the man and his lawyer whom we all suspect helped you plan the coup. Then on April 17th, you turned a deaf ear toward 50 to 60 concerned community members and approved a questionable development inconsistent with our general plan. Mayor Beaver and Councilman Thorpe were the only 2 who listened. The same 2 who supported us when we wanted to hire a consultant to protect our staff and city budget from our new city manager. Mayor Pro Tem Duncan, the night you ran the city council meeting in Mayor Beaver's absence, you verbally attacked us for the 2nd time, revealing an intense hatred for those who elected you. Your former friends are tired of your sarcasm, your disdain for us, your dictatorial attitude, your self-importance, personal motives, and your apparent willingness to make behind-the-scene deals. Under your leadership, Yucaipa has gone from an award-winning city greatly admired by other cities to the laughingstock of the Inland Empire. We've gone from a flagship to a sunken ship. You could have stopped it, but you didn't. However, your self-perceived impunity has just evaporated. Councilman Venable, you temporarily have been spared of the recall, but you have demonstrated several times that your allegiance is to Bobby Duncan instead of the community members, and we would like that to change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker, Mr. Mark Westwood, followed by Mr. Joel McCabe.
Evening, Council, Mayor. I'm here to speak on item 3 and 13, the mobile home park rent review. And just a couple of things I want you to know that you may not be aware of. First of all, thank you to Shirley Dalton and YMRA. You know that spells Army backwards. I don't know whether you knew that or not, but it's not an army, unfortunately. It's a small group of beleaguered seniors who can't get the newsletters out, who, if you look on their website, I can't find a word about these ordinances or any actions you're taking on their website, Yucaipa YMRA. And I'm pretty good with websites. So let me tell you, I can find it, but I can't find it on here. And so the vetting process hasn't been proper because we haven't done our jobs to let the Yucaipa Mobile Home Park residents in the 41 plus communities know about this. They absolutely do not know. I've talked to Lynn Tyler, who's the former chair of the YMRA. He's upset about this, particularly because you're appointing a czar without an appeals process. There's the big thing. The big caveat here is an appeals process. And yes, you are qualified because we elected you. You may be a construction worker. You may be a police officer. You know, on down the line, a realtor. But you are qualified because we put you in that position to be able to say, wait a minute, this is not just about residents, by the way, it's about the owners. The owners can be dealt a bad hand too on cases. So again, I propose, slow it down. I called for you to table it last time, but you know, that kind of got ignored. I didn't get listened to on that one. And I'm hoping that you'll think of this. The residents just don't know about this. And it's not anybody's fault except for they don't have a lot of ways to get it out there. They come and they put the newsletter in my park, and somehow or other it disappears. I go and I look for it. You know, I've asked Shirley a couple times, give me the newsletters. I can't.
Ma'am,
Okay.
ma'am, we're not going to have an
But
argument right now.
anyway, she has a hard time getting around. As you can see, she's in a walker. We really need to really be conscientious of this and do a better job than we're doing. Even though you've been saying since 2011, we need to do a better job than what we're doing to get this message out to Yucaipa Mobile Home Park residents, because it will backfire on everybody. And I know they can appeal in the courts, but you know what? That's a very, very expensive thing. So is this in the best interest of the people in the 1st ward, the 4th ward, the 3rd ward, the 5th ward, the 2nd ward? I don't think it is. But most of the mobile home parks are in your ward, Bobby Duncan. So please consider that when you look at this for your second reading tonight. I'm confused. I don't know whether it's 3 that you're talking about, or that's 422, or 420. And are you outlawing, what are you outlawing without 420? We don't know. But that's my word on that. I hope you will consider it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joel McCabe, followed by Mr. Woody Andrews.
Council, 35581 Fur Avenue. To the Honorable Matthew Gabriel Garner, pursuant to Section 11020 California Elections Code, the undersigned registered qualified voters of City of Yucaipa Council, District 1, in the state of California, here give you notice that we are the proponents of a recall petition and that we intend to seek your recall and removal from the office of Member City Council District 1 in Yucaipa, California. The grounds for the recalls are as follows. Abuse of power. Behind closed doors, removed the city attorney and forced city manager Casey into retirement without warning, despite favorable review and a 2-year contract extension, leaving taxpayers on the hook for any severance pay. Self-serving. Immediately replaced city manager and attorney with political cronies without public scrutiny, input, or transparency in the selection process. Puppet council member. Garner admitted that he votes on the council as he's told to. Councilmember Duncan and special interests supported his campaign and now have a third vote, while taxpayers lose out. Conflict of interest. Funds his campaign with money from powerful developers and special interests with interest in Yucaipa, giving sweetheart contracts to political allies. Failed leadership. Garner conducted a hostile takeover of our city council and is forcing Yucaipa taxpayers to fund his expensive shakeup at City Hall. Yucaipa residents can't trust politician Matt Garner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Woody Andrews, followed by Mr. George Sardison.
I'm Woody Andrews. I live at 12950 Stardust Drive in Yucaipa. To the Honorable Bobby Duncan, pursuant to Section 11020 California Elections Code, the undersigned registered qualified voters of the City of Yucaipa Council District 3 in the state of California hereby give notice that we are the proponents of a recall petition and that we intend to seek your recall and removal from the office of Member City Council District 3 in Yucaipa, California. The grounds for the recall are as follows. 1, abuse of power. Behind closed doors, removed the city attorney and forced city manager Casey into retirement without warning, despite a favorable review and a 2-year contract extension, leaving taxpayers on the hook for any severance pay. 2, self-serving. Immediately replaced city manager and attorney with political cronies without public scrutiny, input, or transparency in the selection process. 3, disrespects taxpayers. Duncan told residents at a city council meeting that he won't listen, quote, "When you all speak now, all I hear is blah, 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 wah, 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 wah," close quote. Conflict of interest. Funds his campaign with money from powerful special interests and developers interested in Yucaipa, giving sweetheart contracts to political allies, and he votes on general plan items that affect him as a realtor. 5, failed leadership. Duncan conducted a hostile takeover, that's in quotes, of our city council and is forcing Yucaipa taxpayers to fund his expensive shakeup at City Hall. Yucaipa residents just can't trust Bobby Duncan.
Thank you, sir. Mr. George Sardison, followed by Mrs. Kathy Sellers.
George Sardison, 12451 Custer Street, in the City Council District, number 4. To the Honorable Justin A. Beaver, pursuant to Section 11020 California Elections Code, the undersigned registered qualified voters of Yucaipa, the City of Yucaipa Council District 4 in the state of California hereby give notice that we are the proponents of a recall petition and that we intend to seek your recall and removal from the office of Member, City Council District 4 in Yucaipa, California. The grounds, leaving taxpayers on the hook for any severance pay. Self-serving, immediately replace city manager and attorney with political cronies without public scrutiny, input, or transparency in the selection process. Broken promises, promised slow growth and responsible growth, but now he seeks determined to expand development against the community's wishes. Conflict of interest, funds his campaign with money from powerful special interests, solicitors of Yucaipa, giving sweetheart contracts to political allies. Failed leadership. Beaver conducted a hostile takeover of our city council and is forcing Yucaipa taxpayers to fund his expensive shakeup at City Hall. Yucaipa residents can't trust politician Justin Beaver. I have quotes from January 9th. Council is taking decisive action to move forward. January 23rd. This decision was an easy one for me to make because I have thought about it for months. The citizens run the city. We hear you, the council, and then the city manager. If the city is in disarray, it is due to the council. I don't trust the government. I've worked in it for 15 years and I don't trust government. These are all quotes from Mayor Beaver. Mayors have a special sort of experience. They've got to make things work. They've got to deal with all the council people. They have got to deal with all the citizens. They have got to deal with everybody. We have a monumental divide in our city between the citizens and the council. And we need a mayor that has the capacity to bridge the divisiveness that has been created. Quoting Councilman Duncan from February 27th, who the city manager is not your decision. It is the decision of the city council. Quote, that ship has sailed. Well, on October 24th, 2022, when council members Avila, Bogue, Thorpe, Beaver, and Duncan voted to extend Ray Casey's employment, our ship has lost its way.
Thank you,
and
sir.
is in turbulent waters. Time for the citizens to start to reverse the course and bring our ship Yucaipa back to port and start anew.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kathy Sellers, followed by Mr. Chris Sabah.
Kathy Sellers, 10185 Palermo Court. Recall is the power of the voters to remove elected officials before their terms expire. It has been a fundamental part of our government system since 1911, and it's been used by voters to express their dissatisfaction with their elected representatives. Consider this a vote of no confidence in 3 of our city councilmen. We have serious concerns about corruption and backroom deals and broken promises made to the people of Yucaipa. First, we asked for compromise and we were ignored. Next, we strongly and loudly disagreed with your actions and we were scorned, ridiculed, and insulted. Now we are motivated to restore integrity and sensible leadership to City Hall. We are not seeking vengeance, but there needs to be a reckoning for your irresponsible and costly acts. We have raised our families here for decades, and we don't have the right to lay down on the couch in the fetal position and let this happen. We don't have that right. We inherited a certain city, and we need to pass it along. We refuse to let all of the hard work done by those who have served before you go to waste and demolish their vision, mission, and values. It's a sad day for all of us that Yucaipa will be thrust into an atmosphere of discord and conflict, but the alternative is not acceptable. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, working together is success. And as an aside, it was a very interesting recitation by the assistant city manager about the thorough application process and vetting procedure being followed to choose a person to regulate the mobile home parks. Why was that same in-depth process not used to find the best qualified city manager? It's almost comical if it wasn't so shockingly absurd.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chris Sabah. Anybody see him making his way this way? In the foyer, maybe? No? All right. There you go, Chris. Thought I saw you turn it in. Sir, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm actually Zaid Afnan. I'm speaking for Chris on the project.
Okay.
And address is Riverside. So we're here, we're representing one of the projects that's been submitted for. It's a service station along Oak Glen Boulevard, close to the freeway. And we just found out that there's an ordinance being proposed on that, We've been in the project about over a year now. We have contracts with Tesla. We have 20 Tesla chargers coming. We have, it's like a 6 retail facility. We have leases and stuff. And just wanted you guys to really take caution with the ordinance like that, with projects coming in and the effects that it would have, especially on a sudden change like that. So
Is this the project on the corner of Oakland and Colorado?
Oak Glen and 14th Street.
Okay. So, okay, are you finished speaking, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. City Manager, if I remember correctly, there was something about the wording, and I know we'll go over in the staff report, but something about if it's already in the process and there's already been, they're already in the application process, that item number, what is it, 12?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't apply in this case. This is something that we're doing from here
Yeah,
forward.
Point of clarification. So there is no ordinance. Well, there's not the permanent ordinance that has been brought yet. So what will be before you, item 12 this evening, is a moratorium. Moratoriums, by their nature, are temporary. It's in essence a way to hit the pause button and say, okay, we need to pause this and take a look at our code. So what's before you this evening on item 12 is a 45-day moratorium, again, temporary moratorium to just pause and take a look at the projects that are coming and the code.
Okay. I hear you. I don't think it's fair to, if your project is far along in the process, to pull the rug out from underneath you. I think that was some of the sentiment that was shared in some of the last several meetings. While I'm one of the proponents of a moratorium on service stations and car washes, I recognize that what's already been done has been done. There's no going back, really not going back. So thank you. If you want to stick around, we'll be discussing item number 12 here very, very soon, and you can hear the discussion, sir.
And just one thing too, I just wanted to mention something about service stations. Kind of like what we're doing is not like your typical service station that you guys are used to. These are like mega centers. We have fast food options in it. We have more Tesla chargers than we do pumps, and we have alternate fuels, E85. So by hindering these new stations from coming up, you're just making sure you're stuck with the old stations. And if we're looking for growth and new options, we have to look at these new developers trying to come in and build these nicer stations.
I appreciate your comments. Certainly, that's something we will have to consider. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, are there any other public speaker slips? No. Okay. At this point, we'll move on to consent agenda. Is there any council member wish to remove item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent? I'll make a motion. We have a motion by Councilman Venable. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Garner. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Mayor and council member business reports. Does any council member have any business to report?
No.
No. All right, moving on to department reports. And considering we pushed 2, we will go to item number 12, adoption of urgency ordinance 425U. This is going to be presented by our city planner, city planning manager.
Yeah, Ben first, then me.
Yep, yeah, we'll kind of tag team it. So before you is a urgency ordinance that regulates or kind of pauses, hits the pause button for both car washes as well as fuel stations, so gas stations and related developments. As part of the urgency ordinance, this is a follow-up from the last regular city council meeting where city council wanted us to kind of reevaluate our city's development code and see if there's more appropriate locations where these uses are should be directed to. As part of the city right now, we do have 14 fuel stations in operation as well as 10 existing car wash facilities, and then a number that are either in the entitlement review process or have been approved, as well as a few that have been in communications with. And so this would essentially, as for the moratorium, would establish a 45-day limit from any action to approve a new use. I do want to note that any applications that are in review will continue their review. The public commenter, during public comment, their application was turned in. It has been just recently deemed complete, and so it will be routed for department review. And so depending on what results from that, they'll still be in the process. And then as part of, after 45 days, we'll come back with an extension to that urgency ordinance as well as a report on steps to alleviate it. That concludes my portion of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions, and then certainly any direction that City Council has on the moratorium or locations, that's helpful for us as we modify either the moratorium and urgency ordinance the next time around, and then certainly as we prepare a formal ordinance too.
Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, so as Ben stated, this is a very short pause on any actions from the city that affects projects that are not already entitled. And the purpose is to study the issue and to come up with some recommendations to the city council. Based on just the comments that I've been hearing and the way this is going, what I expect is you're likely going to be asked for an extension in 45 days, but it'll likely be a little bit more tailored. So right now, we're coming in, no more service stations, no more car washes for the next 45 days. And then I think what we're likely going to be looking at is, can we tailor that a little bit more towards what the actual issues are that we're facing, or more specifically targeted to the issues that we're facing in the community, to give additional time to research whether there's any additional regulations that need to happen. So, are there appropriate zones for these? Are there appropriate geographical areas? Do we need to have some kind of separation so that we're not getting a clumping of these in one area of the city? Do we need to look at what available commercial land we have now? So those are the kind of conversations that I think we're gonna be having over the next couple of months. And frankly, I think it's part of a bigger conversation that the council is gonna be having over the next year, which is, we know what Yucaipa looks like now. What do you want Yucaipa to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do you want it to be, car wash, gas station, car wash, gas station, car wash? Or do you want to have a variety of different uses for the community to engage in? I've heard the council express strong opinions about respect for property rights and the private right of individuals to develop their property. That's something that we're taking very, very seriously. But we're going to be looking to more narrowly refine those regulations going forward.
Thank you. I'm going to do something a little unorthodox, and she's probably not going to be happy about it, but I know that one of our administrators for the Yucaipa Bulletin is in the audience, and there was a poll conducted. Gloria, can I have you come up to the podium for a moment, please?
I saw this poll. I'm super excited, just for the record.
Yeah. In a world of social media, it would be altogether reckless for us to ignore the social media. Ma'am, if you could please let us know where, we'll limit it because I know people added some of their own. Let's limit to car washes and gas stations. Can you give us some numbers relative to how many people appear to be in favor of a moratorium on fuel stations and car washes?
So
And if you could just introduce yourself for the record, please.
Hi, Gloria Garcia, Yucaipa, California. So we had 4.5 voters. Out of those voters, we had
That 4.5 thousand?
Yes.
4.5 thousand.
1,000.
Okay.
Correct. And it reached 16,000. So our page has 26,000 members. So 16,000 looked at it, were kind of checking it out, that kind of a thing. So car washes. So we have, I'm going to tell you guys in the order. You should have told me that you were going to call me
I
out.
apologize.
All right, so in the order that it was car washes. We have, so the question was, what do we have too much of in Yucaipa? And it kind of stemmed out from the council meeting.
For the sake of this one, we'll talk about car washes and gas stations. I think that's what we'll focus on those two for now.
So, yeah, car washes, smoke shops, Mexican food restaurants, gas station and tire shops, both tied.
How many? What does that vote? What is that number?
2.7 on car washes,
2.7 thousand.
and then 1.6 on gas stations.
1.6 thousand on gas stations. Thank you, ma'am. Now I will go ahead and say it now for the record as well. I recognize that anybody can join the Yucaipa Bulletin, whether you live in Yucaipa or you live in Toadsuck, Arkansas. So we're not going to say that exclusively represents the citizens of the city of Yucaipa. However, I think there's quite a few people that live in Yucaipa or have interest in Yucaipa. So I just wanted to clarify that. Is there any questions of staff from the council?
I've got one for Ben. Just for my own clarification, so the applicant or developer, the gentleman that was here earlier from public comment, talked about the process, where he is in the process. You said that they have just recently received a complete application.
That is correct. So we did meet with that applicant last week as well, but they have submitted their application, and actually, I think it hasn't been complete. They wanted to see what happens tonight, and then we'll give a stretch. And all the materials that they do need is available. They also will be identified that they will kind of reevaluate some of the project. They did include, for example, a kind of express car wash use. And so it looked like that they wanted to scrap that particular use and then add retail with it instead. But certainly the fuel station was a big component, and that they did identify that they have an agreement with Tesla to provide superchargers, and then also I think additional EV chargers that aren't affiliated with Tesla as well at that particular site.
So if I'm understanding your presentation and what's being proposed this evening, then even this applicant, as far as they are in this process, they would also have to stop. They wouldn't be able to do anything else, correct?
As part of the application, so they would still be processed. So if they give us a green light tomorrow that hey, we want to continue with the project as it is, or with a modification swapping out the car wash use and then replacing those parking vacuum spaces with just standard parking spaces, we'd route those out. As part of the urgency ordinance, we would be allowed to, under state law, to continue processing it. So we would route it out for conditional approval, public comment. And then essentially the idea being that perhaps after the 45 days, if council decides to narrow the urgency ordinance, they may be ready for a public hearing shortly thereafter and then would go through their standard process. But no formal action can occur while the urgency ordinance is in effect, especially as it's written tonight.
Thank you.
Councilman Venable.
Councilmember, it only affects the final approval. It doesn't stop city staff from processing the applications. So if they directed staff to proceed, they would essentially be in the same position either way. Their application would be processed. The only question is, are they going to be willing to put the money into that process with the possibility that at the end of it, the moratorium gets extended as to them or a prohibition goes into effect. But like I said, we're looking at narrowing the regulations when we bring it back to the council. I don't think it was necessarily, the comments that I received at the initial conversation on this weren't that the council wanted to stop large retail projects from going forward. That's probably the thing that you guys would prefer to happen. So we're going to be looking at different ways that we can address that at the end of the 45-day moratorium.
So this is just basically a regroup.
Yeah, and you're going to be bringing something else, in 45 days, you'll be bringing something else to us with more recommendations, something that we can, at that point, deliberate on and make decisions relative to actual finite details, spacing, stuff like that.
Correct, yeah. Yes, sir. But before the 45 days is up, so you'll likely see it in a month.
Councilman Garner. Questions of staff?
No, I don't have anything.
Mayor Pro Tem Duncan, you have questions for staff?
How many commercial properties do we have right now in Yucaipa that are zoned, possibly zoned, or zoned for a car wash / gas station?
So our city's development code in all the commercial zones do allow for many of these types of uses. So gas station and car washes, there's some limitations where it is, but pretty much any commercial zone that isn't in the uptown business district specific plan would allow for these type of uses, subject to a conditional use permit.
And how many do you think we have, just roughly? I mean, not an exact number, but I mean, up and down the boulevard, over on County Line Road, Dunlap, Calamasa Boulevard. I mean, where would these, I mean, how many do you think would be that someone might look at it and go, hey, I want to build a car wash?
It kind of varies. I think it comes down to how much space they have. Council, I think probably Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Duncan, you're probably the only council member that was part of the Vons gas station. So even there's a little triangle piece of property where they had entitled a small gas station across from the Vons, retail center. So it's depending on how many pumps they want to do or how big of a car wash. The number can kind of vary. So there could be quite a bit that would be theoretically allowed. Certainly the market capacity for that, if everyone developed a car wash on their site, there wouldn't be a market for that, but doesn't mean that they couldn't necessarily submit an application to do that. But yeah, there's probably hundreds of sites that could theoretically support that.
So I have a problem with moratoriums, period. Everyone knows my position on that. I don't think the city should tell a commercial property owner that they can't do something if they have the zoning and they have the money to do it. I don't think that's right. And if we go down that road, then what else is next? I know Mayor Beaver mentioned brothel last time we talked about this, but brothels are illegal. But what about medical facilities? What about dental offices? When does the city decide that we have enough of this, enough of that? I think it's just, I don't think it's right to issue a moratorium on anything, in my humble opinion, because I think that takes away the freedom of being able to do with it what you want to do with it, because it belongs to you. You paid for it. It's your property. You should be able to build something if you want to build it, if it's zoned for it.
So I've been trying to stay off social media for the last couple months, but I did see that this is one that is supported. People in the city of Yucaipa they're tired of seeing our city cluttered with gas stations and car washes, and a plethora of other things that they believe we have too many of. And within reason, I concur with our Mayor Pro Tem. I don't like big government, but I do like big citizens, right? So if we the people, not us, if we the people say something, that's important to stop and take notice. And I think it's important that we recognize it. Listen, for all the disgruntled and angry emails I've gotten over the last several months, I've gotten several, admittedly, some were still laden with some anger. Too little, too late, nice try, who are you trying to impress? However, the sentiment was, we have too many gas stations, we have too many car washes. We're good at that, and that's the sarcasm that people say, right? And I'll do you one better. I said we get heckled every time there's a gas station that opens their doors. The council gets heckled as if somehow we were opening it. That's all the city council knows how to do, is build car washes and gas stations. Then this conversation was had, and it was brought up on the Yucaipa Bulletin. Hey, they're talking about doing a moratorium. And even after that, they said, oh, you need to get rid of every one of those councilmen. So it is something people are passionate about. I'm sympathetic for people who have a piece of property that think that it's going to be good for a car wash or a fuel service station. But with that being said, there's so many other things that we could put in this city in commercial areas that a savvy property owner, business owner can be financially justified in investing in. I'm being asked all the time why there's not more restaurants in our uptown, why there's not more restaurants in our city. People don't want to drive to Redlands and Riverside for a night out. They want to be able to stay right here at home. And I don't know. We occupy a plot of land with something that, internal combustion engine fuel or electric vehicle charging. Either way, it's not something that in my experience is something that easily erased, right? You can't go back on it. There's environmental stuff that goes on. That gas station, which is currently Freedom Fuels, sat vacant for 20 years on the corner of Yucaipa Boulevard and Bryan, in part because, I'm talking to the man, there's nothing else you can do with it. It's going to be something automotive. And because we said there's a moratorium, more or less, on having a service station in the uptown, you can't change it. You can't, do anything else. You can't have an auto service station, which is what it was. They turned it into a fuel station because that was allowed. So while I hear your point, but we do that already in the city of Yucaipa. We already tell people what they can and can't do with their property. If Caritas wanted to expand their lot to the north and buy that lot there and build a bigger auto repair shop, we've already told them they can't do that. So I reject the notion that the city of Yucaipa shouldn't tell people what to do with their private property. We do that all the time. And you're right. I was using hyperbole to say brothel. I recognize that those are illegal, but a strip club is not. And I would submit that if, Larry Flint's Hustler Club strip club wants to put a strip club on the corner of 12th and Boulevard, that we wouldn't say, well, it's your property. If you want to do that, I think we would have an issue with that. So I reject the notion that we are going to stay altogether out of the fight of what goes on private property. With that being said, I know that this council and councils of past have voted on projects that are currently getting ready to break ground, and that's where I would have an issue with. I don't want to stop something that has already been approved and ready. The reason I asked the question of whether it's on the corner of Oak Glen Road and Colorado is because we had extensive conversations about that piece of property and so a small segment of city property that we needed to sell to them for an easement, basically. That was all decided, and for us now to say, stop, I think that is not right. We've already committed to a project, and I don't think we should stop on that. In spite of the public saying we don't want any more gas stations. We've already committed it. It's just not good business sense to treat people that way. But any future service stations, I think we should move towards this 45-day moratorium on just pump the brakes for a minute. Let's take a look at it. I think businessmen, shrewd businessmen and women, can recognize and can understand that this is not a no. This is a hold on a second. We're pumping the brakes to reevaluate the betterment of our city. Ultimately, they wanted to be welcome in our community with open arms anyways, and not with a bunch of people who reject the notion that we should have them in our city in the first place. That's my point. So, if there's no further questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
Just one clarification too. Moratoriums do require 4/5 vote to pass. So just wanted the council to be aware of that.
Thank you. Is there any further questions of staff?
Can you say that again? Yes, sir. In order to pass, moratoriums require a 4/5 vote of the council. Just wanted you to be aware of that.
And this is just temporary. This is just a
Yes, sir. Just for 45 days.
breaks.
45 days.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. So do we not already have a process in place where when an applicant comes in, planning division, Ben, some of the staff can make recommendations as kind of the desire which the city would like to go? And outside of that, once we get to a certain point and a project gets to a certain level, it then comes before the planning commission, correct? To be reviewed? So those are two processes we already have in place that if we want something done differently, I think we as a council need to figure out a way to communicate that to the city so that they can make those recommendations at the counter, and then maybe somehow communicate that to the commission so they have an idea what we want them to do when they look at projects, rather than going towards a moratorium.
I think the problem in my mind is that leaves some ambiguity to some of these people who think, oh yeah, we're going to build something in Yucaipa. I think we should set a structure for the city. The planning commission, the city council should set a structure so that, and I'm not saying we should say just a carte blanche, no, you shall not. What I would suggest, and hopefully this comes back to us, is within reason, within a certain amount of mileage of a pre-existing fuel station or get car wash. I said it in a letter to the community, and I stand behind it. Nothing in my letter to the community when I was elected by you folks as mayor changes in spite of everything that's gone on the last several months. And one of my points was urban and rural Yucaipa bifurcation. People have come to this council before and said that we should reject digital billboards on the 10 freeway because it'll ruin Yucaipa's rural atmosphere. When in fact, in my opinion, there's nothing remotely rural about the Christopher Columbus Intercontinental Highway. It's the busiest stretch of freeway in our country. And that's what I'm talking about. So perhaps the wording would be, if you're on the freeway and it can benefit passerbys in Tesla supercharged or electric vehicles or whatever the case may be, it can benefit those that don't live here. Maybe that's an argument that we can consider. But I think we need to be careful with, to our city manager's point, protecting an area of our city which is vulnerable for cluttered development that is used by some that will do away with what we're trying to create in our uptown and our more centralized part of our city. This all became a talking point because of the city bank. And that city bank, I campaigned on it. It's been vacant for decades, and it's an eyesore. And more than that, it's a haven for criminals to sit and do drugs. And there's kids that live right behind it. It's just wrong. something should be done with it, but I still maintain that it shouldn't be a car wash. I think I said in jest, a Buffalo Wild Wings would be better there now. Something could benefit our city. So I think it's unfair to say, no, we're still going to let you apply, even though we know we'll never let you do it. I think that doesn't seem right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, to Councilman Thorpe's point, I think he's right, and I think that we really need to take a look at this city's development code. A property owner should be able to pick up the city's development code and know exactly what's expected on any given piece of property, know what uses the city's looking for, have real clear design guides, which don't exist now. So we are, as we bring the draft budget to you next month, as part of that draft budget, it includes funding, hopefully this next fiscal year, to really do a deep dive and redo our development code to be much more specific about what we want to be when we grow up as a city.
And that doesn't exist now?
We have a development code.
But I mean, it's not specific, it's not clear?
You want to take that, Steve?
I could probably add as well. So the city's development code itself is a remnant from the San Bernardino County government code. So as part of their zoning code, a lot of the framework is on there. It doesn't have a lot of specificity on, in terms of prioritizing development in certain areas. And so even as part of the 2016 general plan update, one of the programs kind of listed on there was at some point taking a deep dive in our development code, adding degrees of specificity that help encourage the type of development that we want to see. Is a pretty ambiguous code in certain respects, just because it is at this point, the framework itself is 4 to 5 decades old. And so that's, I think, kind of the point, is making those necessary updates. A lot has changed in terms of, especially on the residential development, some of the requirements that we have. And so making sure that all those pieces that are in the code create the policy framework for the Planning Commission to effectively move forward City Council's vision for the community.
Any other questions for our city staff?
I think I'm with John on this one. I think it starts with you guys, just like what we've ran into other problems, or not problems, but people want to come in and develop, and you pump the brakes on it and come up with some good plan. So.
How long will it take to get a development code that's more specific?
We can get one off the shelf. We just finished one in another city that I advise. But I think that 90% of a current development code is very similar from one city to another, right? Similar language, similar processes. It really helps both the residents and the development community understand what the process is in a city. I do think that the part that requires a little bit more time is really understanding your vision and the community's vision for the city. When you have a development code that is older than your city attorney, right? Is it reflecting your current vision for the city, or is it reflecting the county's vision for the unincorporated community of Yucaipa 40 years ago? It also involves a lot of processes that, frankly, most communities don't use anymore, because they don't give both the community and the development and developers an understanding of what the council's expectations are. We have so many items that there aren't objective standards that are given to property developers. They're basically just said, you get to go to planning commission. And, that level, Ben called it ambiguity. Do I think our code's defensible? I will defend our code. Could it be better so that both the community and property owners understand what the expectations are, and they have a reasonable amount of certainty about, I'm going to put all this money into developing a gas station or service station, right? Do I have a reasonable likelihood of it being approved? Or am I going to flip a coin? And, is it in the wrong spot? That it's on the map, it says it's okay, but the community feels that that's not the right location. We want to be better about communicating our expectations to property owners, and also incorporating the community's feedback. So long answer, didn't answer your question, Mayor, which was how long. That is going to
45 days?
Well, the money hasn't been appropriated yet. But I do think, going back to Councilmember Thorpe's question, Councilmember Thorpe made a really good point. A property owner, a developer, should have some understanding of what the expectations are. They should understand where these uses are acceptable to the community and are not. And right now, they don't have that, right? You know, we have people who are putting in time and effort to bring forward an application for a car wash, and lo and behold, the community hates that location, right? They're doing, polls on the, unofficial Facebook site. You're getting, I think, how many you said, Mayor, like over 3,000 or
4 point something thousand
votes. I mean, apparently the people of Yucaipa feel very strongly about this, but that's not reflected in the code. But it'll be reflected in the planning commission. It'll be reflected in the city council. And so I think that's why, if you give us 45 days, we can narrow it down, and then hopefully we can come up with some better standards for those projects going forward in the future, so that applicants and property owners understand this is what we expect, and you have a reasonable likelihood of success if you go down that path.
Perhaps that's a better, yeah.
I wanted to just add as part of the review, so staff does try to work with property owners and give them kind of highlights or concerns, but certainly without kind of the policy framework in place, the developers have the right to submit the project, and so without really having that clear direction for them through the development code, they're kind of going, okay, is it staff that has this opinion about a particular use, or is it an actual city kind of policy? And so clarifying those details helps our end to advocate for the city as well.
Yeah, I'd like to still see the brakes pumped a little bit, give us that 45, give staff the 45 days to come up with something to bring back to us. I'd like to see our planning manager work really closely with our economic development manager so we can really pinpoint where in the city can we best invest for the development of our economy. So we're not just letting things spring up and then going, man, that's silly. Like, why would you put that there? There's certain parts of our city we're trying to, groom to have more of a, outdoor feel, go from brewery to a restaurant to a YPAC show to a wine tasting cellar on Cal. Like, there's parts of our city, and it just doesn't make sense if Powerhouse Gym closes down. I'm not advocating they do, but that's right on the corner of California and the Boulevard. That we put a Chevron there. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that's not going to help our nightlife. It's not going to help our YPAC succeed. It's going to put a gas station next to our YPAC. And so perhaps a moratorium is a strong word that sends shivers down the spines of some of my colleagues up here. But I still think we should pump the brakes and wait. Let's let you gentlemen do what you do, develop a code that's stronger, that gives us a little bit more framework for our cities so that we're listening to the people who clearly don't want more gas stations, especially in areas where we shouldn't have them. I don't think we should do anything in stone up here, but I don't think there's something unreasonable with a 45-day hold on anything further as it relates to this matter. So I think we discussed this ad nauseum. I think we can see if we can take the vote. If I'm going to go, do we still do a motion? And so is there a motion to approve item number 12 as written? Okay, I will motion to approve item number 12 as written. Is there a second? And I stand alone on an island. It's okay. All right, so the item dies without a lack of support. And hopefully we can move forward with the development code and we can do something without anything further until city staff can put something together. All right, so item number 12 dies. Moving on to announcements. Is there anything the council has to announce? Councilman Thorpe.
Nothing for me.
Councilman Venable. Councilman Garner.
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem Duncan.
We have our Music and Arts Festival, May the 5th and 6th, and I'm looking forward to that. I always look forward to that, and I'd like to announce that my one and only grandson graduated today with honors from Cal Baptist University. I spent most of the day there honoring him, and we're very proud of him.
Indeed, quite an accomplishment. I have nothing to announce either. So at this time, I will adjourn the regular city council meeting of April 24th, 2023 at 7:23.